Hello guys, MC the Miniature Surgeon here, real life surgeon with a passion for all things Warhammer, and in this series of videos I'm going to show you 3 levels of painting that you can do for your brand spanking new Indomitus Space Marines in the colors of the Blood Angels. And in this first video, let's start with how to get our troops looking more than respectable on the battlefield of the 41st millennium. Let's go. To start with, we're going to base coat our model with Grey Seer spray. Now Grey Seer serves as great undertone for the contrast paints that are coming up next. Next, we're going to coat all over the armor of our Space Marine with the appropriately named Blood Angels Red contrast paint. Now I've made a separate video discussing whether or not you should use contrast paints for base coating, but long story short, you can, but you'll just need to use more care and attention if you're using contrast paints. But the reward of taking the care with the contrast paint is that all the deep recesses and panels will be lined without needing to pick them up one by one, which saves a lot of time in the end. Now to make sure you don't get contrast paint separate and pooling in weird flat areas that will really make it pop, make sure to paint the model part by part, limb by limb. Once the first coat is dry, we're going to add a second coat of Blood Angels Red to really lock in the color. Now this layer doesn't need to be thick at all, so just go ahead and get rid of excess paint before you go to town with your intercessor. Now Black Templar, we're going to pick out most of the accessories on the Marine, so this would be the joints of the armor, the belt, as well as the pouches. Now if you accidentally got some red on the Grey Seer, just touch that up before moving on to this step. With Ironhand Steel, we're going to base coat both the chainsword and the bolt pistol on our model. Now make sure you base coat the entirety of the bolt gun, since we're going to go over the metallic color with some other contrast paints, so make sure you have a solid coat there. Now contrast paints are quite a new player in the paints and pigment scene, and to see how to use it over different colors, go ahead and check out my video on 5 tips using them. After dealing with the weapon, remember to pick out the skull on the Aquila. And after that, remember to pick out the various parts on the backpack, such as the central dome, as well as the exhaust pipes. Next, we're going to fill in the pauldrons of our model with Khorne Red. Now this varying tones of red will really help bring contrast to our model. Now with Black Templar contrast paint, we're going to go over the casing of our chainsword. Now using Black Templar will help us create a subtle highlight without having to actually do it, since the contrast paint recedes from the edge of the chainsword casing to reveal some of the Ironhand Steel beneath. Now repeat the same process for the upper receiver on our bolt pistol as well as the foregrip. Now I have to apologize guys, but apparently I autopiloted and painted in the Aquila with Eshin Grey prior to taking this clip, but we're going to use Basilicanum Grey over the Aquila and all other parts that was previously coated in with Ironhand Steel. If there are any purity seals on your model, now's the time to pick them out with Skeleton Horde contrast paint. Now this paint goes on so well, there's really no need to highlight it. Now onto the fun part and some finishing touches. We're going to paint Runefang Steel into the lenses of our Space Marine. Now this will serve as a very bright undercoat for subsequent contrast paints to go onto to give a very vibrant glow. Now also take this opportunity to pick out any metallic details previously blocked in with Ironhand Steel. Now to where the magic happens, with Warp Lightning Glow contrast paint being as neat as you can, layer it onto the lenses. Now the sculpt of these models are so fine that there are recessed areas in and around the eyes, which allow the paint to gather and thus recede from the middle, revealing the bright silver underneath to give the illusion of a set of glowing lenses. You can also go over the other black details blocked in with Black Templar, but this is quite optional since the Black Templar should have receded a bit to create its own sort of highlight. You can also pick out the very edges of the Aquila to increase the contrast on the chest piece. Now here's how the model looks so far. If you look closely, you can see how the Blood Angels Red contrast paint flow into the recesses by varying degrees based on how deep set recesses are. So the deeper the recess, the more paint and the darker the lining becomes naturally. Optional step now is to edge highlight the model with Wild Rider Red. The reason I say edge highlighting the armor is optional is because the Blood Angels Red contrast paint have already pulled back a bit from the recesses on a model with as many sharp edges as a Space Marine. Now these become quite evident by itself even without edge highlighting. I'll put one model in the finished spinning shot without the edge highlight, so let me know in the comments section if you can guess which. Regardless, here's me putting on the edge highlight on 3 times speed for your viewing pleasure. Now guys, as a surgeon, these fine motions are really good for practicing my dexterity both at the surgical table or my painting table. I made a video sharing some tips and tricks I use for both, so go ahead and check them out. So there is our Blood Angel Assault Intercessor ready to go onto the battlefield and kill or disable some Necrons, whichever way you like to think about it. Now if you made it this far into our first video, why don't give us a like? And to stay up to date with our second video where I mix in even more tips and tricks for my Primaris Outrider, do hit subscribe, click the bell icon to stay up to date with even more awesome content. So, did you work out which Space Marine didn't have the highlights? Post a timestamp in the comments section where the Marine is looking at the camera, and there may just be a surprise coming your way if you get it right. Guys, this is MC the Miniature Surgeon, signing out.